This conference will now be recorded.
So as part of today's class, we are going to talk about Informatica Big Data Management Overview. As you can see here, like the module objective is to talk about the basic concepts of big data, features of big data management as a tool, and the key benefits of using big data management over other tools. And big data management architecture we'll be looking into, and we'll see like what all tasks as an Informatica BDM developer you'll have to perform. So let's first talk about big data basics. Okay, what do you think big data is? Let's make it interactive, Mayank. What do you think big data is?
Okay, so it is a database which is actually used to handle a very large amount of database, huge set of database. So it
It's not a
comprises of
database. It's not a
it's not a
database.
it comprises of multiple technologies to handle that those kind of data sets.
Okay, so let me come on to it. See, earlier we were using RDBMS to actually process
Mhm.
the data or whatever we want to do on the database side. We were doing it on RDBMS, and the one RDBMS which was famous for decades and decades, that was Oracle. You remember? People are
Yeah,
saying Oracle. Yes, the database means Oracle. Just like, for example, footwear means Bata and Liberty. So Oracle was just a database, isn't it? Talking about in
right.
Indian terms, right?
Yeah,
So
correct.
Oracle, as a relational database, has acquired a lot of space, and people were using it all across. But when they tried to actually put in a lot of data into it, and when the data has grown too huge, it was very difficult for RDBMS, either like Oracle or even the database, which is actually following up the parallel processing architecture, Teradata, that was not also able to handle up the data in hundreds of petabytes. So if, for example, you have a data and in you can say just few petabytes, I mean to say like 10-20 petabytes, that also your Teradata is not able to handle. Even though there is a parallel processing, even though scalability can be done at horizontal levels, still the data can't be processed the way you want. The reason was the data is actually was growing at very huge pace that can't be actually taken over by, you can say, being processed by this relational databases. And that's the reason this the file system that we were using since previous decade, that came into picture. Now it is not a database. First of all, Hadoop is an application, or you can say a consortium of a projects that you have from multiple services. By multiple services, what I mean is there is something called HDFS, a file system on which there are lot many files which are being placed. And that HDFS is also comprising of name node and data node. Name node stores all the information about where the data is stored. It is just like, it is just like a Tehsildar office that has all the details about where exactly everybody is living, who's which property belong to whom, right? That's what, let's say, the Sildar or property management office in any country or any city will have that information, right? The same kind of information is actually being stored in name node. That what data is actually being stored where. Okay,
So sort of
so
index only, right? So name node is
yes,
like a sort of indexes. Okay.
yes, sort of index you can say, but yes, it has more details and more granular detail as compared to that of index. Okay, so name node is actually just acting as a place where you have all the details about your data, which is placed on data nodes. Now let's come to a data node. Data node is actually acting as a place where you are storing your data. And now the storing the data is actually not just on one piece of, you can say, hard disk. Let's say, for example, in your house you have hundreds of computers, that old computer you have, let's say, whatever the computers that you had, the old computers, you want to actually use the hard disk that is in there, and you want to actually build them as a data node for your HDFS that you are building up. That's still possible. That's why they say cheap commodity hardware or cheap commodity disk, if you'll actually take, you can actually prepare your Hadoop on top of that. How? Because that can be used for just HDFS system that you will build on. Okay, so your data is actually going to store on those commodity hardwares, or hard disk where the data will be stored, and the data information will still be lying into name node. And where by default in any Hadoop architecture, you have three by default three replication, like whatever the data actually you are storing, that is actually being stored thrice. Means let's say tomorrow you'll have some failover, and whatever the data that you had that actually went because of failover, that can be derived from other disk that is actually holding up that data. That's the reason we call Hadoop as distributed system or distributed computing system. And that's the name what we have for HDFS, Hadoop distributed file system. The files are distributed across multiple nodes. And with that, obviously we are getting the benefits of storing it the way we want, and we can use as much as disk as we want, and as huge data can be split it over multiple nodes and can be stored there. And whenever we want to retrieve it, we can retrieve it and use it for whatever the calculations we want to do, or whatever the display purposes that we want to perform, we can actually do that. The basic idea is just to put it on distributed nodes. On top of that, what we have is, let's say, the architecture that can actually bring up the data as and when we want. So now now whatever you said, like it is a database. It's not a database, but it looks like. Why? Because we have something called Hive on top of HDFS. That Hive is nothing but acting as a schema. Right. For example, you might have seen, like, if let's say there is a television in your room, if there is a screen, and inside that, let's say, all the wires or all the circuits will actually start appearing behind it, would you be able to understand how you'll have to operate it? There is no button, nothing is there. Would it be easy for you to understand what exactly that television is, or what exactly that LED is? If somebody will actually open it up from everywhere and show you the internals of it, just just the wires, or let's say the green boards, motherboards, that is actually behind your television or behind your computer, if somebody will open it that way, and yes, the screen is there, then would you be able to use it up properly? If somebody will say, start this machine up, you don't have a remote, how will you do that? There's no button. Obviously you'll have to understand, man, where should I actually put in which wire, what I should do. Similar is the case with the analyst. They thought, how exactly we can do do the processing of this data which is stored in the form of file. We haven't played with the file, and now we need a SQL, or like some remote control or some button that we can press. I mean to say, like, they need something which actually can provide them writing up a SQL instead of just playing around with the files. That's what the thought they had, and that's with that thought Hive came into picture. Like, they need it for just analytical purposes. And obviously nothing can work as is, because, for example, if you have just placed all the buttons on your television, would it be done for you? No, man. There should be a connectivity in place, right? Whatever the motherboard point where exactly it should get pressed, so that the circuit should complete, that particular connectivity should be there. Or let's say, whenever you'll do that, for example, if you'll do select start from table, whenever you'll do that, there should be some thing that should run in between to get your data from HDFS and place it back onto your screen when you do that. So that is MapReduce. MapReduce is acting as a bridging layer between, or a computing layer between, Hive and HDFS. HDFS is simply a storage. Hive is simply a schema management, and MapReduce is a computing engine.
Okay.
Hope you understand.
Yeah.
Is it clear? I'm just making it clear. My assumption is, like, if I am giving the example, it is easy for the person to get the insight into particular technology.
Yeah. I'm getting it somewhat.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So it is not a database, but yes, the different projects that we have across the globe of these Hadoop or the big data, they are aligned like with each other just in a way to make sure that yes, the data is actually coming everywhere from HDFS only, but there are multiple layers in between that is actually helping us out to see that data, to sneak peek that data, to actually use that for analysis, to prepare the reports on it, or do let's say multiple other kind of activities that we want to do. And now you might think of, there is something called Zookeeper in your Hadoop ecosystem. That Zookeeper, as the name signifies, it is just a controlling mechanism to make sure that if there is any failover or the service actually gets down, it should bring that up. So that's the work of Zookeeper. Ambari. Ambari is the place wherein you can see all the dashboards related to all the services, like in which service, what exactly is happening. That's what Ambari shows up. Okay. Now talk about Mahavat, Mahaout. That is a machine learning platform for anybody who want to use Hadoop ecosystem for bringing up the data. So Mahavat is also there. Just like that, there are many other tools and technologies available. Apache Spark is there, Tej is there. Spark is again a directed acyclic graph mechanism to bring your data the way it is. Just again a computing engine, just like MapReduce, but it can bring up your data very fast. Apart from that, it can actually it is just acting as a calculation of the computing engine. Whatever calculations you want to perform, which even you can't do that in MapReduce, can be performed in Spark. Spark is a new age you can say computing engine that everybody everywhere across the world is using to process their data faster, and moreover it supports the streaming. It is interactive, in memory, and supporting streaming activities. You can write a SQL directly into the Spark. You can write Spark SQL that will get executed in the Spark, behind the scene. Okay. So that was an discussion about Hadoop ecosystem. If you want to see, I can show you up on my screen. Just give me a minute. Hadoop ecosystem I should show you so that you should have an idea what I am talking. Yeah. Okay.
So Kamal, basically, the services that have been offered Hadoop, these kind of services are offered in AWS as well, right? So
Yes, I'll come on to that. Yeah, I'll come on to that to explain you that in a better way. So see, everything that we are looking at here is actually a service that can provide you up the Hadoop features. Okay, so these Hadoop services that we have are either HDFS. HDFS is a place where you are storing your files. That is actually the base of everything. Now on top of that, there is a Yarn. Yarn is nothing but a resource management. Resource management, you can say yet another resource negotiator. Means just like your human resources team in your office, what they are doing is they are making sure whatever the resources are required to process whatever the mapping or MapReduce or data processing that we want to execute on top of HDFS, whatever the resources required, that should be available and that should be provided by the Yarn. Okay, now if you want to do a SQL query on top of it, use Hive. Go into Hive, write select star from table, you'll be able to process the data the way you want. And obviously, if you are doing something here, you'll have to go by MapReduce, then by Yarn, then by HDFS, you'll be able to get the data. And to maintain all these services, Zookeeper is making sure that if any service is going down, it will start it up again. Ambari. Ambari is nothing, just the name signifies. It is actually a management and monitoring console that gives you a dashboard access. Now, data collection, if you want to do, then there is a Flume, Apache Flume, that can actually help you out to collect the data around your logs that you are actually like it can actually just take the logs from one system or one type of database and put it in, let's say, big data, and give that logs back from big data to you can say RDBMS or the legacy systems. And similarly, for the real data that you have, you can use Scoop. Both are for the data transfer. This is for the log shipping. This is for the purpose of transferring your data from RDBMS to big data sources and big data sources to RDBMS. Okay.
So what is
Any
difference
question
between
if you have, please.
yeah, what is difference between this scoop and data collection again?
Scoop and Flume both are doing data collection. You can see here, right? Both are doing data collection here, but this one is actually for the logs. So if let's say if the data for the logs will get leaked out, or the data for the logs will get actually, you will not get the proper data out of the logs, that will still be okay. The processing is not that good in Flume, okay, as compared to that of Scoop. Scoop actually process up your data in better way, and obviously it's not for the logs, it's for the purpose of you can say transferring the real data. Both are doing the same thing. You can actually do same thing from the Flume as well, but Flume Scoop is more reliable as compared to Flume. That what people around the globe have in their mind. Otherwise, you can see both are for the data collection.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's talk about HBase. HBase is a NoSQL database that you can use, and it is just a columnar store which actually has the data in the form of key value pairs. Now
Okay.
you can actually store the data in a different file formats. Now here it is not like you have one type of data or the tables. Here you have the different file formats that you can go through. You can actually store your data in the form of Avro. You can have a Avro file behind your Hive table. Okay, that is what Avro means, Avro and JSON. So cross language services are available. So you can actually use Java, you can use Python, you can use C, C++ to access this system. And you can actually work on this system through multiple scripts. And that's where exactly Pig also come in. Pig provide you a scripting mechanism that you can actually write any kind of script here and get it executed through Grunt, which is a Pig shell, and make sure that whatever you want to do here should be executed by Pig. Okay.
Okay.
So they have the names like the name of animals, or you can say related to Jew. You can see here, right? Mahavat is a machine learning library. Drill is just a cube. That's like in SQL Server. In SSRS, you have the cubes, right? Pre-aggregated data.
Mhm.
Similarly, you can use drill here for pre-aggregation, or the data that you want to build in the form of the cubes, you can do through drill. Then if you want to maintain your table and the schema, so hcatalog is there to make sure that you are maintaining table and schema properly, that you can do through hcatalog. And Oozie is just for the workflows. For example, you want to schedule up something, whatever you are preparing, whatever the query or the script that you want to execute, you can actually process that up through workflow. So you can schedule that out the way you want. So this is what your Hadoop ecosystem is. Tell me if you have any doubt. Any doubt, please.
So Kamal, this Hadoop ecosystem is actually based on which technology? What is the technology stack for it? All or everything required Java, or how everything connects to each
No,
other?
it's just like it's just built on top of this to actually provide the different services. So for example, like you started up with a car. You thought that I want to buy a car. Now you went into the market and you thought, yes, you have seen everything, and now you thought, yes, I will buy some basic car. Okay, you bought, let's say, Maruti 800. Now Maruti 800, you don't have any AC, anything, and by the time you identified that I need a stereo system in this, you actually went in and you actually bought a stereo system. Now you thought that stereo system is fine, but AC is more important. That I'm getting a lot of heat in the summer and I can't actually manage it. So you got AC. Now the seat covers are not that good. You actually thought like I should change these seat covers and make it as per my need. Now that way you are keep on actually changing up and everything in your car to make sure that it should be as per you, right? Similarly, it's not about the languages, it's not about it's not only about the way you want to use it of different technology. It is altogether a same stack that we call as big data stack. And let me tell you, this is what is a base of every big data application. There is nothing else apart from Hadoop that came in and actually got this much of significance. So it is a unique project in its own. On top of this, there are many other projects being launched by Apache, just like Spark or Solar, or there are many other. There are many other tools or technologies available from Apache or different other groups that is helping you out to ease your work on big data. But still, everything is still is still actually binding to each other, and as and when required, people use it. For example, if you want to do machine learning, you'll not look at the technology or anything, but you'll start up with the writing of the machine learning code, executing it through MapReduce, getting the resources through Yarn, and processing the data available in HDFS. So every time you are going to do it just like this only, the top-down fashion, in top-down fashion.
Okay.
Are you getting me? Like what I mean to say, like it is just like they had a need, they made it.
This
Just like
Hadoop,
when you bought a car, you made it. Whatever you need, you made it. This is the
this
way, like in
so
Hadoop
this
ecosystem they did.
yeah, so this is like now
Please.
a framework. That these are the steps
Correct.
has to be
Correct.
followed,
This
and
is a framework. Yes. And this is not just this. Now there are thousands of services on top of it, being built either by Apache or by you can say Cloudera or by Hortonworks, right?
what do we mean by services here? Oh,
So services is just like let's say if let's say for example your HDFS service is down, HDFS is not working. What are service? Tell me what is service? Like there are two things in whole computing, whole computing that we have across the world. One is the file, another thing is the service.
mhm.
Okay, these are the two atomic things. Anything that you create is a file. Even the
Mhm.
folder that you create is itself a file.
Right.
There is nothing called file and folder. There is files and files only. And with files, multiple files, there is something called created as file only. That file we call as folder. That file actually has multiple files in it. That's what file is. Now, how to interact those files? How to make sure those files are talking to each other? We made some executable files. I want those executable files are actually available when I want to use it. I make it service. If I want,
Mhm.
I can actually run the service whenever I want, or if I don't want it to run it, it will be still there and it will be just inactive. As an example, like for example, if Google's mail service is not running, if you'll start actually sending the mails at that time, you'll get a failure that Google mail service is not running, man, your mails didn't go through, right? So that is the service. Anything that provides you whatever you are sorting for, that particular purpose that you want to get done through that, that particular thing we call as service. If you want a water, you'll ask somebody that can you get me a water? They have provided you a service. If you want if you want food, you actually order it through Zomato or Swiggy. That food actually came in. That was a service. That application worked as a service for you. That person who brought up that particular food for you is a service, right? Is it clear now?
Ye-
What do I mean by
ye-
services?
Yes, Kamal.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back onto the uh, okay, here it is. Okay, so let me now come on to the theoretical stuff. So big data, it is a term that to denote extremely large data sets that can't be processed by a traditional RDBMS application. It involves tools, techniques, and frameworks like Hadoop. Now, you might have a thought, man, that's okay. Something which can't be processed by traditional RDBMS. What exactly can be those things? Tell me, what do you think as a limitation of RDBMS?
Um,
Let's say
the
if data is huge, right? If the
Right.
data is huge, then that's a limitation, right? We can't actually put
Right.
in as much as we want, right? If let's say you have a
Correct.
space of just 1 petabyte, I'll put in 10 petabytes. Do you think your data will still be okay, or your database server will still be okay? I have a 10 petabyte data, but you have a space of 1 petabyte. Would I be able to put in my data? No,
Hmm.
never. So traditional databases doesn't provide you a space wherein you can store your data. There is a limited space that you can actually fill it up. Now the memory is also limited, because how they are built like this. Like one CPU, on top of that there is another, on top of that there is another CPU. That's how this data is being built, right? You have this way of actually scaling up. And obviously, when you are scaling up just like this, your memory remains the same. Your disk size will keep on increasing. And one day, it the memory or the RAM that you want, if that is not enough to actually deal with this particular system, then obviously it is going to be burned down or actually start actually failing. Now, what we did in Hadoop is we distributed it. It is now laid down just like this, right?
Hmm.
So if we laying it down horizontally, obviously we are getting the benefit of increasing the RAM as per increase of your this drive disk. For each one of them, the RAM and drives both will be used. Both have their own. All of them have their own CPUs. You might not believe, but there are systems with more than 5,000 nodes, and people are running those systems. Okay, so
Yeah.
if the data is huge, then there is a requirement of big data application. If the data is coming at very fast pace, think of as an example of Google Maps. If in Google Map you are getting a data at very fast pace, do you think that you will be able to process that kind of data through your RDBMS? No. Do you think Google Maps is storing their data, whatever the data they are getting every single second, are they storing that in RDBMS? And will they be? Can they think of? No, man. The reason is every single second. Let's say, for example, if we have, let's say, in whole world of, let's say, somewhere around 5 billion population, whole world, let's say, if I have only 20% of people as mobile subscriber, 1 billion mobile subscriber if we have, so each one of them is actually sending up their data again and again to Google Maps and getting we are getting back again the data in our phones whenever we want to see where are our near ones, right? If, for example, you want to find out where is your friend, and that friend has shared already a location with you, or let's say if your phone is placed somewhere and you want to find out where it is being placed, you'll go into your Google account and you'll be able to see, yes, it is placed here, right? There are multiple ways to do that. And how that's possible, how every single second Google Map is actually getting the data of your phone and then maintaining it over their servers. Is it possible through RDBMS? Is it possible through database services? Never. So that's again a big data application that is behind it. And that's what has given a birth to this Hadoop or Hadoop ecosystem. In 2000, Google came with GFS, Google File System. And in the later years, in 2004, they came up with some search engine search engine management tool that we call as Lucene. That was actually doing the Elasticsearch. Okay, so we had a place where we can store the data, that was Google File System, and on top of that we had a tool or the framework that can help us bringing the data from that Google File System, that was Lucene. And after that, year by year we start getting these one other projects, and in this last 20 years this Hadoop has been built to whatever it is now. Okay, so now I'm talking about the speed. So let's say every single second 1 billion records per second is coming. That can't be processed by RDBMS. We need a Hadoop applications to do that. Now tell me, like, if you have a YouTube video, or if you have images on Instagram, or if you have a Facebook post, is each of these data similar? No. The data that we are getting is not structured at all. It is unstructured data in different formats. Do you think that unstructured data can be stored easily on RDBMS? Never. Right? You can't store that data. You can't store the YouTube videos. You can't store the Instagram images. You can't store or process the Facebook posts. It's not that easy, right? This is one of the example. You have n number of different type of data available all across the globe that can't be processed through RDBMS.
Right.
That's what is a big no to RDBMS now for the data that actually needs a big data application to process that. So extremely large data set that cannot be processed by traditional RDBMS application involves tools and technologies like Hadoop. That is what we need for, just for the purpose of big data. These things are actually as an example. Okay. So let's say social media. If everybody is posting at a single time, obviously speed, and so there are three V's. If any of these three V's is actually on the higher side, then obviously we are actually in the need of big data framework. V means velocity, first V volume, velocity, and variety. Variety is something like this YouTube and stuff. Velocity is something like this Google map what we talked about. And volume is like the data that we are talking about, like the extremely large data sets. So now even with the social media, we are getting the fast velocity and volume, even variety. All the three V's are actually are there. So obviously we need a big data application. None of them can be done through RDBMS. Now sensor data, even though both the volume and velocity is actually huge, and in sometimes variety is also going to be different, because that's sensor data, binary data that you have. Relational data obviously is on top of volume. Like if the volume is actually at some level that can't be processed through RDBMS, then this is actually a relational database which can help you out do this. Stock exchange, both volume or velocity. Variety is going to be similar, like you have the structured data, but volume and velocity is going to be something that is making sure that you need big data application. Any question here, please ask. I
No
tried to
comment.
explain it the way it will be easy for you.
Yeah.
Now see here, like the big data word is too big, right? Now what do you think, what exactly is the big data word? Where you have a number of things. I told you, like when we were looking at that Hadoop ecosystem, we were talking about this, like this is something like what you need when you need, you brought it. For example, it is just like the file, if you want to place, just put it in a storage in HDFS. If you want to retrieve it, just create a Hive table on top of it and start writing the queries. That will get converted into the MapReduce and will process up your data and pass you back the data. That's what MapReduce was, a computing engine right here. Now, if, for example, I want to maintain a security on top of it, so there should be a security mechanism that I should actually build on top of it so that nobody can access it without authentication. So there are multiple tools that are available, or the services that are available, that you should use for maintaining the security on top of it. Now the different type of data formats that we have. For example, somebody has the file format as text. I have a Parquet. Another person has a RC. Another one has a ORC, because they have a different needs. So we can store the data in big data in n number of different formats, and we can use them interchangeably. Now even the data format is okay, but the compression is going to be different for different kind of file format, and it is important to do the compression so that we are filling up the less space, because if we are getting a data increasing every single day, obviously at some point in time our big data or HDFS system is going to be full. So we should actually make sure that we are compressing the data also intelligently. NoSQL should be there. We should have a different type of NoSQL like MongoDB, HBase, Redshift to access our data. Similarly, like if the data is actually coming from different type of systems, first thing that comes to our mind is which distribution I should use. Should I go for Hortonworks, or should I go for Cloudera, or should I go for MapReduce? Based upon my use case, my requirement, I'm going to choose the one that is best for me. Obviously, in the storage layer, you have already seen that you have the three options: HDFS, S3, and Azure Blob. Why? HDFS is something for on-prem. Like if you want to store the data in the form of the files in on-prem, then HDFS is something that you should go for. S3 is just for placing the file in AWS. AWS S3 is simple storage service. Azure Blob is the place where you can actually put up the files the way you want. It is just an HDFS for Azure, right? Again, AWS S3 is HDFS for AWS. So these are just few 20-25 different product or services that we have for big data, and it's very difficult to understand each one of them and take the decision to start with any one of these, or maybe the combination of these is difficult, right? There are too many decisions that you have to take when you are starting up big data application or project. So it is going to be very difficult for you to take that decision, because if you have taken, let's say, S3 for now, and tomorrow, let's say, most of your other services are on-prem, you'll have to come back from S3 to HDFS. That decision defeated, right? You build everything in S3, now you are actually migrating it to HDFS. That is not making sense. You put a lot of money on our AWS, now you are actually putting all the data back to HDFS. It's not making sense. And let me tell you, in last decade, 95% of big data project that we had, so those projects are failure. 95% projects are failure. The reason for that was, you already know, like the people doesn't have the full tech stack, right? The full stack developers were not there. Whoever was saying like I can do the Java, I can do the SQL, that's not possible. Like there were very less people who had that kind of knowledge. The person who knows Java can't do SQL. The person who knows SQL can't do Java. So that kind of actually combination was there, and that was one of the reason. Now the different use case, we have a different tools. Here you can see only few, but think of it, if we'll go into the the Google and try to find out the one for doing security implementation, you have hundreds of security implementation available in big data. How will you choose it? Let's say you have chosen it up on the basis of your use case, but the use case actually got changed because of the client's requirements sometime, and now you are pissed off. The reason for that is you have too many decisions that you are beginning with, and it's very difficult to implement each one of them. The reason is you'll have to write a script for everything, and obviously even every time you are changing the things, the migration is going to be far more difficult. Now let's talk about big data world with Informatica BDM. I'm trying to sell you BDM now. The reason I'm saying that here you'll have to just prepare a mapping, nothing else. Decide as you go, prepare a mapping, execute it on any engine that you want, and get it executed. Select the NoSQL databases you want through the connections. Select the storage layer through the connections, and just in the configuration specify which security mechanism, which distribution, and which particular execution engine that you want to use for your Informatica BDM mapping. For every mapping, you can actually specify execution engines. Now, with the data formats, you can actually specify in your physical data object which data format, which comparison mechanism that you're going to use in your mapping. That is also you can specify, and that's just a piece of work that you are doing in a mapping. You're just putting the features or options there. Any mapping that you create will get converted into the Spark or Spark Scala code or Blaze Hive code. that your engines can understand. For example, if you are executing it on top of Spark, this mapping will get converted into Scala code that this particular Spark execution engine can understand. Okay, so here it's decide as you go, build once, deploy anywhere. That's kind of you have, not like uh, the plain big data applications wherein you'll have to take too many decisions, right? Now, what is big data management? It is a solution to leverage high-speed processing capabilities of Hadoop. It enables the organization to process large and fast-changing data. It is a solution to process the data whose volume is greater than 10 TB. If the data is fast-changing, means the velocity is fast, volume is huge, variety of data is again, you have a lot of data from different varieties coming up, then BDM is something that you need, right?
Yep.
Now, what are the feature lists that you have in Informatica BDM? You have a visual design environment like Informatica Power Center. You can drag and drop your sources or targets and then create your map, get that mapping executed over through the sessions and the workflows. Similarly, here you don't have session. There's no such thing called session here. Mapping itself is an executable. You can right click on map, start it. That's visible. You can use workflows if you want to actually put a dependencies between the mapping, and that is something that you want to define in your workflow itself instead of specifying it in your autosys job or your control M job. Universal data access is there because you can access n number of the sources, n number of the target, just by creating the connections and then bringing up those physical data objects. Data integration on Hadoop and Spark is now possible. Earlier, like the data integration we actually got in Informatica Power Center was from different type of sources. And in some cases, we need a power exchange connection to actually make sure that we are fetching up the data from that particular database from which we want to get that data. But here the things have changed. You need not to have your data exchange stuff. You have I should not say hundreds of different templates through which you can bring up the data and you can use it up in your map, and you can integrate it as and when required. Now, the intelligent data parsing is there. As I told you, you have a different file format. Somewhere the data is stored in Avro, somewhere it is stored in JSON, some other place it is stored in Parquet. Now, if I want to actually transfer the data from one type of file format to another, and that kind of a parsing I'll have to do, then I have a BDM through which I can do it directly by creating the mapping. High-speed mass ingestion and extraction is there. Mass means multiple table import. Ingestion is import and extraction is export. If I want to do high speed or bulk mode, multiple table import or extraction, then Informatica BDM provides me up with a tool which is mass ingestion tool that I can use for importing multiple table at once. I can do data profiling on Hadoop so that I can identify what kind of a data is coming into my system, and I can easily understand what the data is all about and where exactly the data misses are, or what exactly the invalid data I have. I can put up even a scorecard or put up a lot of other transformations in data quality to understand, yes, this is how Hadoop actually behaves with the data profile. Like it is like on Hadoop you got this kind of feature. On your Spark engine, whenever you are executing your profiling, that is executing on top of Hadoop, on top of some Spark engine, let's say. So that's that is a kind of beauty you have here. Now you have a smart performance optimizer. You can select all the engines that you have. By normal, you have Blaze, Spark, and Hive in Hadoop. If you select all of them, execute your mapping, the engine which is best for the particular source and particular transformation will get picked up and will execute your mapping on top of that. That's what is going to have happening in your big data management tool using the different big data engines. Now, flexible serverless deployment is there. You don't need a separate server for the deployment purposes. you can actually deploy up your IAR, Informatica Archive file, directly onto different kind of connections or domains. So if you are actually deploying it on different domain, obviously it is not using some server in between and executing it as and when you want, and making sure the deployment is done as and when. So that's what the feature list that we have for Informatica BDM. Now, if you have any question, you can ask.
Ah, so Kamal, I didn't get the point on flexible serverless deployment. What does this mean actually?
So tell me, like, if you have to actually do a deployment, sometimes you need a Unix server. You place also
Right.
files there, and then just run CI/CD processes, continuous
Mm-hmm.
integration and continuous deployment. Pipelines that you will prepare and you'll run them. Now, if you
Mm-hmm.
have something where you can right click and just say deploy directly onto another environment, if that is feasible, would it be a serverless deployment or not? It is a serverless deployment. You can directly deploy into the higher environment if they are on the same domains.
Okay. Okay. I got it.
You
What you're
don't
trying
need
to
a
say. Yeah.
specialized server
Mm-hmm.
wherein you will do the deployments, where the CI/CD for your BDM stuff will run. You don't need it. If you happen to have it, that's okay. But there is a possibility that Informatica BDM has given you where you will not need it.
Okay.
Any other question that you have? Let me go back. This is about BDM. What is it? Like volume, velocity, and variety. This is about how Informatica BDM is taking up the space which big data world started losing up because of the technologies that we have to learn and because of the decisions that we have to take. It is very easy for us to here do the POCs by selecting one another different type of feature or the option and executing the mapping. That way we'll be able to process or build once that mapping and deploy it anywhere, anytime with the different features or options. We discussed about the big data as like what exactly big data is all about, and how in different type of you can say a different type of situation or different type of places, how the big data plays the role of actually processing the data up. Now that's what exactly I was thinking to plan up first today, and we had it. There is some other things that we'll actually be discussing in another class. So there is a BDM architecture as well as the key benefits of using Informatica BDM. We'll be picking it up in next class. So key benefits, let me take it up. It's integrating more and more data from more sources. Ingest any data through the library of pre-built connectors. So you need not to actually start importing the data, like import and this particular connection library, import this particular connection library, and then use it. The way you use it in your programming languages, that is not here. You can process and data anywhere. You have already seen like whatever the data that you want to process and whatever engine that you want to use and whatever the data that you want to create and deliver, so that can be done even directly through your Informatica BDM, through Informatica BDM data objects library that you already have. Like, I mean to say the different kind of data object template that we have, instead of actually taking it up from the libraries that had it. So we already have library of pre-built connectors. Now here, process and deliver and data anywhere. I told you like you can actually prepare a mapping once and deploy it anywhere, any particular way you can execute it. You have a optimized runtime processing and simplified monitoring across multiple engines. Like you can actually go at any place and you can start monitoring your monitoring your logs on the basis of which engine you ran it on, right? Let's say you ran it on Spark, so you'll have to see it in Yarn. If you ran it on, let's say, Hive, you can see again it on Yarn. But if you have ran it on Blaze, you should look it at into a Blaze monitor to identify what happened wrong. Optimized runtime processing is there. Like if you have selected all the engines and you ran the mapping, obviously you'll be able to see like your Informatica BDM is intelligent enough to decide which particular engine is best for them for that particular use case, right?
Yes.
So that is all about big data basics. We'll actually be picking up BDM architecture in the next class. Tell me if you have any question.
No, Kamal, no questions as of now. I will go through this